please don't hear any of this, Brad.
And Dad's like, I got the fuck out of there. I was like, oh man, you didn't partake?
Do you fear death?
Oh, one of the greatest lines of all time.
I could have chopped it. I could have chopped it.
Trumpinator 2020.
Making me 30 sides of red sauce.
Listened to so much. Are you
That needs two, motherfucker.
I'm duly impressed with your interior decorating skills.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. That was first of all, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank
Quite
you
an
now.
honor. Episode 89, Joe Giles. Man who probably needs no introduction to most folks, but I mean, you've been jamming in rock bands going way back. You were a principal. You were involved with Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. You've done a number of things.
Well, I have, and apparently nothing well enough to continue doing
Sure,
them, but
right.
it works out all right, I guess.
Works out all right. What's the thing that gives you the most passion? You're a passionate man. I've been around you several times, and you've always got this level of energy that is just mind-blowing. Where does that come from?
I could not tell you where it comes from. The thing about which I am probably most passionate is performing.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it so much. When I guess the spark, when I was in grade school at Farmington.
So you did go to Farmington?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so.
And you're a Farmington boy,
Yes,
aren't
sir.
you?
Yes, sir. Dad went to Prairie Grove. I went to Farmington. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my father was in the second graduating class of Farmington
Is that right?
schools, and his name was on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
There, him and about 7 other
Right.
people, and I was going to when I heard they were going to tear down that particular building
Yeah.
and tear everything out, I was going to go over with a hammer and chisel and take his
Really?
name out, and I got there a day late.
No way.
And then,
That's a
of
bummer.
course, in years past, my name was on the sidewalk, and that got torn out too.
You know, that's something I lament often about on this show is, change is inevitable. But, especially Farmington, I graduated in 2000, and it's not the same town that it was then.
Oh, not
It's
at
not
all.
the same town. What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 1968 because I'm
68.
incredibly old and might die right here on your couch.
You
for all
you
we
could.
know.
We could
There's
publicize
that
that some way,
possibility.
make it,
But Farmington
Take
Grade
advantage.
School gave me my start when I was about the 3rd grade, and we had a wonderful music teacher, and she would get kids from the classes and put on elementary music shows
Yeah.
like they do.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the beginning. By the time I got to junior high, I knew I wanted to be a disc jockey, and
Yeah.
and I did that for a
You
while.
did some radio work for a bit, didn't you?
I did a little. I went to college at Arkansas Tech in Russellville, and so for a year I worked at KCAB Radio down there,
Gotcha.
which was a country station, and great fun. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Sure.
Kind of helped pay my way through school.
Yeah.
And then I worked up here at KKEG for about 2 months,
Yeah.
and then the owner and I had a personality conflict. He had one and I didn't, and so
Right.
so I was relieved of my duties,
Sure,
we might say. And I've been a musician since I was in high school. When I was in high school at Farmington, the high school Farmington band was a 5-piece rock and roll band.
Get out of
That
here.
was our school
Are
band.
you serious?
Yeah.
That's
and we
cool.
we played assemblies. A couple of times we played at the home basketball games.
Really?
That was it, because that's all we had.
Yeah.
I graduated, Brad, in a class of 27.
Right.
When I was young, the Farmington population sign said 217.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah. Well, they have. Somebody was asking me recently what the population was, and I had to look it up because when I used to live on Rays Mill Road, right across from that population sign.
Okay,
It
yeah.
was like 2,200 when I graduated, and it's over 10,000 now.
Well, every cow pasture has become a subdevelopment.
Yes, and it's incredibly disheartening. I wrote a song about Farmington disappearing right in front of my eyes back in 2001. So you can see how far it's come since then. I remember when
And-
South Winds went in, and I mean,
Oh,
you know,
everything changed, and that is the kind of the price we pay for the economic engine in which we live.
sure, a lot of opportunities here that I didn't have growing up that are
Oh.
now around. Like my oldest son is into robotics, which
Really?
Oh yeah, programming, teaching. He's more responsible than I am now.
Outstanding.
Yeah, he's an incredible kid. I'm playing drums. My middle one's playing drums with me, so we just started a band with my dad. I don't know if you know my dad at all. Do
Bill.
you know Bill? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I thought you did.
Actually, that was going to be one of my clarifications today. Now you are Bill's boy.
I
aren't
am
you?
Bill's boy. Yeah.
And I guess that's a term that folks no longer use. You're so and so's boy. That's
I remember
we
hearing it.
country folks that that's what we say. Is, hey,
Well, growing up with grandparents, that were born in the 30s, early 40s, I always identified a lot with that generation. It was a tough generation. Maybe a little insensitive sometimes.
oh yeah, without a doubt.
Some assholes there, but they I don't know, there's something about that generation. They worked hard.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't, I mean, the thing, you always want to give your kids more than you had, but then I feel like it's gotten to a point where kids have just gotten out of control with, the world of things we can give them now.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. If you go to businesses, companies, that sort of thing around, it is hard to find employees who work like we did,
Don't I
and
know
like
it.
our parents did, and that is not they can't help it. That's how they came up.
Sure. You don't know what you don't know. In fact, I've told this story recently, but I managed a team for 7 years at a corporation, in accounts receivable, and we were rocking and rolling until the company had made a decision that had infuriated some people, so we had some turnover, and so we started getting younger people in. And I did great with people my age and older, but as this younger generation came in, boy, I got called into HR all of a sudden for telling a joke. And then, and it was like, man, this is a different world. People just didn't used to get offended by things like we do today.
Do you remember the joke?
Oh, man. No, I wish I did.
I mean, we could quite possibly totally piss off all your viewers right now.
Oh, I've already pissed off enough of them. The ones
Okay.
that are still around are the cool ones. So
That's all.
what
All
I mean?
right.
Like,
all right.
Yeah. No, but so what are you doing now? What are you spending your energy on?
Well, back in the, I never have a short answer.
I know.
Understand?
I know that.
Back in the 90s, I had a band called the Hard Tops.
Yes, sir. Very familiar.
And a fellow named Lee Height and I
Oh, yeah.
started it. And Lee was the music guru for everyone in this part of the country. He worked at Sigler Music.
Mhm.
He had his own music
yeah.
store. And if you are of a certain age, and you are becoming of a certain age,
Yes,
by the
indeed.
way, then you knew Lee.
Yep.
And knew who he was.
Yes, sir.
And if you needed something, the phrase, well, I'll go see Lee.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not like I'll go to Sigler.
Right.
I'll go see
Go
Lee.
see Lee.
And he'll take care of me. And he always did. And anyway, Lee and I had been friends for a few years, never played together. And so we wound up starting a band, and is called the Hard Tops.
What
And
year
for-
was that?
We started the Hard Tops, I believe, in 1989. And it takes, did I mention I'm really old?
No, I just was thinking this is episode 89. That's one of those kind of frequency things.
Okay, there you go. It's fate and kismet here. At any rate, we started the band, and it takes a year or two
Sure.
for you to gain traction.
Absolutely.
But after a while, it became wildly successful locally.
Absolutely.
And did extremely well. And then it, as bands do, fell apart.
Sure.
As actually they about halfway through they fired me, and then
Is that how that went down?
that is exactly
How'd you
how
end up
that
getting
went
yourself
down.
fired?
And it was entirely my fault.
Really?
I was enjoying myself far too much,
Okay.
and far too much on stage, and I'm
Understood.
pretty certain that I became totally convinced that it was all about me.
Sure.
And it was not. I
Right.
was the least musician in the band.
Do you play an instrument?
I was initially a drummer,
Really?
and I thought I was a fine drummer until I heard a drummer.
Right. Yeah.
And what I from then forward, I knew I was a guy who owned a kit.
Right. Big difference.
And I've always played a little acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And when I was a little kid, I took piano lessons.
Right.
Although those interfered with watching Bullwinkle in the afternoon.
Sure.
And so I
Absolutely.
whined my way out of that. But I can play a little bit of keyboard, a little bit of guitar, a little bit of bass. Probably I'm best at drums, and I'm not good at drums.
Sure. Sure.
So, but that was it. They. I really used to enjoy beer on stage,
Yeah.
and that was part of my demise there.
Well,
As
as somebody
it
who
were.
also, actually, you can see that beer holder on my mic stand. My mom actually got that for me back
You
years
got to
ago.
love that.
Yeah, she said, I don't like how you turn to your amp to always go get your beer. Just have it right there, and then we don't have to
That's
turn
exactly. And it's too easy to spill your beer on your amp.
Exactly.
They're all problems there.
But partaking of a couple of beers during a show gives you a little boost sometimes.
Sometimes it enhances my performance.
Indeed. You just got to keep it within the lines.
After a while, I will tell you a tequila story. Not quite yet. But at any rate, so they kind of kicked me out of the band for a couple of years, and then they asked me to come back, and we
Right.
played a couple more years, and then it did just run its course and
Yeah.
fall apart. And while I was gone, I played with a guy named Russ Hutchison,
Yes, sir.
and after the Hardtops fell apart, Russ and I got together and started a band called the Homewreckers, and we were wildly successful for kind of a part-time band
Absolutely.
for about 20 years.
That's where I was introduced to you. And you know, as a kid growing up playing music, that was the pinnacle. You know, there was Joe Giles and the Homewreckers, there was Hunker Down, you know, but there were just a couple bands that just everybody knew of. This is the first podcast I've actually fanboyed out. Looking forward to the guests. You were a big inspiration to me.
I'm really embarrassed now.
You should
I
be.
want you to
Should
know. I was.
If you're the standard, then how sad am I? I mean, right?
Well,
I'm kidding.
with the Homewreckers, once again, I was by far the least talented person on the stage, but I'm pretty good at showing off, and I owned the truck and part of the PA, so I got to be in the band.
Right.
And
But, well,
the other
charisma
guys
goes
were
a long
real
way.
musicians.
I mean, if you think about performances, I've seen George Strait live,
Uh-huh.
and it was the most boring show I've ever been to. He got all the notes, he sang it beautifully, it sounded like the record, but it was a boring show. I've seen you play several times, and you're all over the place. So, I mean, there is a value to the entertainment factor of what you do that a lot of people don't have.
Russ and I both took great pride in feeling like it should be a show.
Yeah.
And
And you
should
did. You put on a
interact
show.
with the audience, and you should just do things. It
Where'd
should
the
be
hat?
an antenna.
Where'd the hat come from?
My father always wore a hat. I don't have a single picture of my father, but what he had a hat. And after he passed away, I inherited his hats, and I started doing that.
Is that
And-
his hat that you wore?
No, no
Oh,
more.
okay.
But I wore his hat on stage for years, and it finally wore out. Wore a hole
It just
in,
wore on
in
down,
the
yeah.
top there. And sometime in my mid-30s, I started becoming follically challenged.
Sure.
And so it was good to have something to cover up this very back here,
Okay.
because I'm quite vain.
Sure.
And so I wanted to look as good as I could and as interesting.
Yeah.
And
Well, it was an iconic
and I love
look.
the hats.
Yeah. That was
really
in fact, when you walked up without the hat, I was like, who the hell is this guy? Who does he think he is?
I almost wore the hat
Oh!
today. Actually, I almost rode my motorcycle today, and I went out to the garage and the battery was down. And I said, "Well, damn it!"
It's a good day to
And
ride.
So, great day to ride. Although I'm just as happy not to catch the very beginning of your drive.
No, yeah, that's a danger. Boy, that sucker it's flooded a couple times and washed that sucker right out.
Oh, I bet.
You gotta put some money into some waterworks and stuff, or just dump gravel on it. But yeah, it's pretty steep.
It is, and had that little dip in
Yeah.
it to start with, and so I was pretty happy about it. There are people who have seen the show who have never seen me without either a hat or a do rag,
Yeah,
and I mean, which is kind of a good thing.
sure.
I don't get recognized as much.
That's
Not that I get recognized.
that's how you
a
slip
lot,
into
but
obscurity. You just go
Yeah.
full bald, and then
there's
you don't get
there's
recognized. There is
something
truth
to
in that, though. If you have an iconic look and you're not dressed as that,
Yeah,
then you have some anonymity. I don't know if you know much about the band Tool, but those guys used to really, like, they'd play in the dark. They wouldn't really let the lights hit them. They didn't do interviews.
really.
And it was, yeah, Danny Carey, their drummer, said one time, he said, I love that I can just go out in the crowd and watch the show and nobody knows who I am.
It
Of course, with an ego like yours, you probably couldn't do that.
Well, to tell the truth, the ego is mostly on stage.
Yeah.
When it's, I'm a little bit shy and timid
I get it.
in real life,
I
and
think we
I'm
have a lot in
always
common there.
amazed when someone recognizes me, and it feels good, of course.
Right.
But at the same time, it's wow, well, thank you.
Well, I've known you a long time, whether you remember our meetings or not, but I always felt you were a very humble guy, but also a little, and this is not a bad thing, but kind of a bullshitter. Like, you have a persona
Yes.
that might not necessarily be the real Joe, but that's what you use on stage.
I'm not a musician. I'm a performer.
Right,
That's the deal.
right.
Or as Russ and I always say, we're not musicians, we're just beer salesmen.
Sure,
And
whatever you want to call it.
That is exactly the case for musicians if
Yeah.
you get right down to it.
Yeah.
Some of us are artists and feel that way, but the rest of us kind of get it. It's a business, and our business is going to a venue and selling beer.
Well, yeah, it is in a way, but also you have a creative process that goes in. Like, how did you guys? Was it pretty much you and Russ that kind of picked out the set list, or was the whole band involved? How did that work?
Pretty much me and Russ, and pretty much me, to tell the truth.
Really?
I don't know how it's happened, but every place, every job I've ever had, I've sort of wound up being in charge. It was that way in the education business.
Right.
I was a classroom teacher, but really kind of in charge of the building unofficially.
Right.
And I don't know why, because I'm totally incompetent, but it just worked out that
You
way.
fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah. And it was the same way with the bands I
Yeah.
was in. I did all the stuff no one else wanted to.
Sure.
I did the booking. I took care of
Right.
logistics. I wrote out set lists. And if they didn't like it, it was too bad, because at least they didn't have to do it.
Well, that's fair. Yeah.
And one of our credos in the band, and I'm very proud of this, when I first started playing, I went to see a lot of bands, as many as I could. I'd go to the clubs
Right.
and places like that, and almost all the bands I saw, they'd do a song, they'd stop, might talk, might tune, kill a little time, maybe kill
Yeah.
a minute or two.
Yeah.
And that drove me crazy.
Yeah,
And
it's sloppy.
and as a disc jockey, I hated dead air.
Yes. 100%.
So, what happened was when we got together, and this started in the hard tops, it said, boys, it's song, song,
Pop,
song.
pop, pop. Yeah.
If you get a little tired, we'll stop and I'll talk
Yeah.
for very briefly, but then it's song, song, song.
Yeah.
And if you're in a dance band, you play a song, you stop playing for a minute, everybody goes sit down.
Yes, exactly.
But if you fire another one up within 5
'em
seconds,
out
they're
there.
still on the dance
Yeah,
floor.
absolutely.
You know this.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Putting a set together, especially if you have a long set, it's almost like an album. Especially you grew up with the great music of the 70s. An album was, and we don't really have this anymore. I don't like listening to singles. I like listening to the full album for that experience. Zeppelin's a great example.
Yeah.
You'd have your rockers, and then they'd pull it back with, like, Since I've Been Loving You or something. And it was a roller coaster ride of dynamics. And a set list should be that same way. You kind of take people on a roller coaster.
That is exactly the
You
case.
wouldn't, yeah, you wouldn't put all your rockers up front and all your ballads at the end. You want it to be an experience, so you put a lot of thought into your set list.
and you kind of project what you think reading the room will be.
Sure.
You
In advance.
yeah, exactly.
Sure. And then you'll get that feedback based on demonstrated success or failure of, no, this didn't work here.
yeah, every now and then you have to change the list on the fly.
Yeah, sure.
As once again you well know.
We've all done it.
Now then, I have rattled on and on here, and I very often have the capability of shutting up. I'm going to ask you, tell me about Durham.
Oh, you flipping the script. Well, this
I
was your
am.
show. I didn't expect to get this. Well, Durham was one of those things that I had been in several bands before. I started writing when I was, well, Dad tried to teach me guitar when I was 10. And at the time, I was listening to Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer.
Okay.
So there was very little use for me to have a guitar, and I thought, this is ridiculous. But he taught me my chords. And then, a few years later, Nirvana and Pearl Jam are out, right? And, this is really speaking to me. I really got into grunge. And I always loved the 70s music. My dad and mom's music, David Bowie, Zeppelin, the Beatles.
Yeah.
So I grew up on that. But as far as my own music went, we were kind of going through that rap phase, so it was kind of a weird time for me to get into music. But when grunge hit, I was like, well, this stuff sounds easy enough to play. Because a lot of that 80s guitar stuff is so intimidating.
Oh.
That, and our guitar player, Johnny,
time.
grew up in that generation, so he's our shredder. But I started writing songs when I was 13, just kind of to learn music. Dad kind of helped me get my chords back, and he kind of told me, he's like, I can show you kind of how to play, but you got to do it. You got to put in the time and the practice, or you're not going to get good.
Now, your dad played.
My dad still plays. We just started a band together.
Okay, let's go back to your dad for a minute.
Yeah.
And I remember that
Joe just took
with
control
whom
over
did
my
he
show.
play?
Did you guys notice this?
I have done that.
So subtly. It's like a knife in the dark. No, but what about Dad?
Think of me as your personal Johnny Carson here. Now then, but your dad played, and I've heard him, and because I'm really old and forgetful, with whom did he play?
He played in a band, so, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of who. Do you know Lynn Gann? He played with...
I don't think so.
Man, who did he play with? He played with a band. There was a couple of ladies in it. They were pretty big. You probably played some shows with them. And phenomenal keyboard player. But him and my dad got together back in the 90s and started a band called The Basics, which was a cover band, and then they did a lot of stuff. And they had a guy named Jim Hanna who put on a festival every year out in Crosses, Arkansas. So Dad's band would headline, and my band would open up for him. It was a really cool experience. And when you're young, there's not a lot of opportunities to play live. We had Clunk back in...
All right, yes.
If you remember Clunk.
Yes.
Which, I mean, it was such a cool thing to just have a place where anybody could get up on stage and see if you had the chops. But, yeah, Dad always had his own thing, which was his cover band, and I always had my own thing, which was mostly originals. But he kind of started helping us. He saw some talent in us and wanted to get us into the bars when we were, 17, something like that. We were pulling in good crowds at Clunk. We were recording albums. In fact, Lynn Gann recorded our first studio album with his home studio, the first sober record, which was the first band that I actually had a lot of success with. But we, Dad got us into JR's Lightbulb Club when we were kids, and we were playing with people 10 years older than us, and we had to wear these bracelets, and it was wild, So we went from playing Clunk to playing the real shit, and we had a CD release party there. We did a promo where it was like first 100 people in get a free CD, and we got people in there. And then Nick, I don't know if you remember Local X.
Yes.
When that was going on, Nick Thomas must started that from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He had started a big scene up in Grand Rapids, and him and his wife moved down here. He was asking for local bands to submit, and we had submitted some music. We became really good friends with Nick, and he started promoting us and coming to our shows. And I think there at the beginning, more people were coming to see him than they were us, but they stuck around for the band. In fact, we've got fans of Sober that married each other and have kids and who are now coming to Durham Fest. I mean, this is a wild, and I'm sure you've seen this too.
That,
it's a
and
beautiful.
doesn't that feel good?
Oh, there's nothing to describe it.
You have been so lucky to have experienced when Fayetteville really did have a tremendous music scene.
Yeah.
And that is, well, that's no longer the case.
Well, I was at the tail end of it. I saw it die, basically.
But
And
you
that
know, there was a
sad
time
thing.
when there were several places on Dixon Street that would have live music.
Oh, absolutely.
JR's was great. Clunk was great.
Yeah.
There were all
You had
those
George's, you had
places.
Chester's.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Dave's
Yeah.
on Dixon. I saw some of the first national acts I ever saw at Dave's. And again, you know, Dad knew people that could get me into the show. And so I saw the Nixons and Better Than Ezra. And I'm a 16-year-old kid watching Jerry Cantrell. You know, what an opportunity.
That's exactly right. And that has kind of gone by the wayside now. You know,
Sadly.
there are a couple live music, but of course, George's will always be.
Oh, it's a
As
staple.
long as Brian Crown is alive, George's will have live music.
Yeah. And I worked for Brian Crown for a while.
Really?
Oh, yeah. When I was in college, I did press releases for him. I was an advertising major. Also worked security for a few shows. Got to meet Hank Williams III working security one night. But yeah, back in Bob Kramer was there. I don't know if is Kramer still there. Do you
Yes.
know? Is he?
Yes.
That's awesome. Golly, that guy's a fixture.
He
You know what I
is
mean? Like-
he is a Dixon Street icon, as it were.
Yeah.
Everybody that goes down, everybody that pays attention that goes down knows Bob.
He's a
Knows
fixture.
who he
He's one of
is.
the most consistent things about this town.
Oh, he really is, and just as good a guy as you will ever meet. Excellent human
Absolutely.
being.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of good people in that scene. But you're right, it did kind of fizzle out. Now it's turned into a whole different thing.
There are so many, just what we would call stand-up bars down there.
Mhm.
This, in my opinion, is what happened to the live music scene in Fayetteville and Dixon Street specifically. It used to be that, you know, every place that had live music also had a little cover charge.
Mhm.
You know, and maybe it's just $1, maybe $2.
Yeah.
The great thing about the Cape Brothers was whenever the Cape Brothers raised their cover, then the rest of us got to too.
Right.
So if they went from $2 to $3, then I made more money.
Right.
It was great. But all the places had a little cover
Yes,
charge.
sir.
And if you have a cover charge, your audience tends to stay. They've got an investment there.
They're invested in it.
And,
Yes, sir.
and they've come in and they will watch. And if there is no cover charge, they can come and go.
Right.
They wander in and out, and so you kind of lose them.
Absolutely.
Years ago, part of the mainstay of the Fayetteville music scene was Jose's there on Dixon Street.
We loved playing Jose's. It was outside, so you could just draw people in if they liked what they were hearing.
Are you old enough to remember when it was purely inside?
I do, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And they had, that's first time trout fishing in America came to town.
Is that
That's
right?
where they played. First time, wasn't the first time for Bel Airs, but Bel Airs used to play there when they were a 4-piece band.
Really?
They had a harp player
Huh.
with them. It was the Bel Airs that
Yeah.
we know now, and, well, the brothers had got
Yeah.
a different drummer,
Yeah.
and they had a harp player.
Interesting.
And he played, they would do that. They did R&B and some soul stuff, and the harp guy would play like the horn parts. in the
Interesting.
soul
That's
music,
cool.
and he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
really, really good. But back then, you know, all of Jose's was inside, and he had that place out front that was just, I think, maybe just a little parking lot or something.
Yeah, there for a while, yeah. And it
And
was
it-
right next to the when Gypsy
Yes.
came on board, we played there a lot. That was a great stage for a long
Oh,
time. And then it
great
became
stage.
Froggies and kind of on down the line. But
And
there for a minute.
and now it's a food truck
I know.
place, and good food trucks and neat bar out
Yeah.
there. And I believe that Dave Bass, who was Dave's on Dixon,
Yes, sir.
that's his place.
Oh, is it?
I think it was,
Yeah.
and probably still is.
Yeah, it's interesting. And just to finish up the Durham story, so Sober had gained some success with local acts and had gotten pretty big. We got a manager. We had an opportunity to open up for some national acts. Long story short, the manager was kind of fucking us, and I found out about it. And parted ways without talking to the band, which canceled some very big shows we had. There was a bit of a falling out, and so I had foregone scholarships and opportunities to play football to do this, right? So I'm a year and a half in out of high school, and this is my dream, and it's getting there, and then it just ended.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy shit, what do I do? Started going to taking some classes at NWAC. My Uncle Kimball hired me to build his house out in Prairie Grove, and you know Kimball probably too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You two guys are probably have a very kindred spirit.
Kimball had a pretty good band, too.
Oh yeah, Kimball kicks ass. But anyway, I just tried to start something new, and eventually we got Durham together and found a great group of guys. Gary Witherspoon and Nathan Tyree were out of Prairie Grove, and then you know, Johnny Smith is actually went to Springdale. He's 10 years older than us, so we had a very interesting dynamic. And this is starting over. I had a second band in between Sober and Durham. That Sober was very constrictive in the way that when you're young, you're trying to find your identity. And so as a young songwriter, rather than thinking, what can I create? It's, how can I sound like Kurt Cobain? Or how can I sound like Alice in Chains, right? And that's what young people do.
Sure.
You try on different identities. And it became something that I found I kind of got trapped in. It was successful, but I felt like I had to keep writing in this style. The band didn't want to do ballads or anything acoustic, so I kept writing those kinds of things. So the next band, the August, I was like, we're just going to do weird, odd time signature acoustic music, right? Because I've never been able to do that before, and that was a fucking disaster. It was like the first show was big because it was, you know, it was my first time back,
Sure.
and then the second show they had seen it and said that we're not having that. So anyway, we're playing with me and Greg Melton, who was the bass player for the August. We tried out this drummer named Gary Witherspoon, and he comes in, he blows our minds. We're like, man, this is our guy. And we had given him some of the August music to listen to, which was kind of acoustic and not great. And he goes, man, I like the music, I like the songs, I like the attitude, but I just want to do like just some rock and roll, not try and put it in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg, our then guitar player, goes, well, I've got a couple of songs. So, well, you motherfucker, you're sandbagging me over? You got a couple of songs? So he jams these two kick-ass rock and roll songs, and I'm just showing up, right? I'm just humiliated. I'm like, this guy just showed me up. So that night, I went upstairs, and I was like, I'm going to write some kick-ass rock and roll music. And it challenged me, and it was good having him in that band to, like, push me. And so we wrote the Carry Me Home album. Dwight Chalmers produced it at Listen Lab. Got the CD release out. Right after that, Brian Crown hosted a Battle of the Bands that we won. We got to open up for 38 Special at the Amp back when it was at the mall. And what was really cool was that our guitar player obviously grew up during the 80s and that kind of stuff. And Don Barnes had this guitar that was in the music video for Hang On Loosely. And we were backstage with him talking, and Johnny asked Don Barnes about this guitar. And he calls a roadie up and goes, hey, go grab such and such guitar out. And the guy brings it out. He gets it out and hands it to our guitar player. He goes, here it is. Jam on it.
Oh.
You know? And I was like, and I mean, even for me, 38 Special is a huge deal, you know.
Oh, big deal.
And it was really cool. And then after the show, Mr. Van Zant came and shook our hands, told us we did a great set. We ended up opening up for him a second time in Fort Smith at a festival a couple years later. So we got to hang out with those guys a couple times. But we played for 10 years, and it was a great run. But then you get kids coming into the mix, and it starts becoming, you gotta choose fatherhood or am I going to be in this band? And so Gary and I both wanted to focus on our family, so we didn't play for almost 10 years. And then my middle one said, Dad, you need to do a festival out here. You've been talking about it for years. And I said, yeah, we'll get around to it. And he goes, no, do it this year. You're not going to do it at all. I was like, all right, you little smart ass. I'll text the guys right now and see if they're down for doing a festival, thinking, they're not going to be down for it. Well, anyway, within 5 minutes, all of them were like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, shit, now we got to do this. So we did Durham Fest 1 in 2023. And then we did Durham Fest 2 last year, and Durham Fest 3 is coming up June 7th. I'd love to have you out if you'd be willing. But so that's what we're doing now. We've just decided one show a year, is
Uh-huh.
what Gary wants to do. And I love these guys. They're like brothers. I mean, we've been together 20 years, even though we didn't play for a while. But I want to keep that going. But they're not really interested in doing new stuff, which as a writer, that's all I care about.
Sure.
Is like, if we've done it, we've done it. And so my son picked up the drums. We played one song last year. He wanted to play something. And I said, well, it'd be cool to get Dad in on this. So 3 generations. So we got Dad in to do bass, and then me on guitar and vocals, and Walter played drums. We just did one song, and he was good. He was competent. But man, after that experience, it just put him on this hellfire bent to play the drums, and he's gotten so good. And he's pushed me to start writing again, and we were going to start working up Durham. So I've been writing Durham songs back. We stopped playing in 2012, so I've got 6 albums written for Durham that I can't do anything with because I don't want to move on from that. But with Walter, we started playing some of that and then writing our own stuff, and then I roped my dad into this, and so he's now playing with us. We got a 30-minute set at Durham Fest we're doing, and after that we're gonna keep going and see where it goes.
I think that is so cool.
It's Joe, I never could have predicted something like that. It's something you can't. I mean, how would you even try and make that happen? You know, I never pushed music on my kids. I never pushed football. Any of the things I did, you want them to find their own path. And,
Yeah.
And if organically, because I grew up with a lot of those dads like, by God, I played football. You've got to play football, you know, and that kind of mentality. And so you had a lot of kids doing things they don't really want to do, which is not really a good
No,
thing for them.
not at all.
But he organically found it, and it's challenged me. And then, and there's something about harmonies with family members. There's some kind of harmonic resonance.
There is.
It really is. And so singing with Dad, and Dad's a huge. I mean, he grew up with the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and so his knowledge of harmony is really great. And I love writing strong harmonies. And so we've just been doing some of these close harmonies, and it's just been the most soul rewarding thing I've ever done.
I'll bet it has.
I'm just in heaven right now. I'm getting to play with my boys from Durham, you know, and we're doing an hour and a half set, but then I'm getting to play with Dad and Walter, and it's just been amazing.
So you had mentioned a name that I immediately recognized, Gary Witherspoon.
Yeah.
And so he's still around. As soon as you said it, I said, he's still around?
He's hosting Durham Fest this year. He hosted it last year. And what was kind of neat, the first Durham Fest we did, he said, you know, I'd kind of like to play a song and sing. I was like, absolutely, man. I'd always like to, because I'm also kind of a drummer, but not a very good one. I was around a lot of drum kits.
I
right?
understand perfectly.
Yeah, you know. And so that was kind of a fun thing we started doing that he'd never done before. So we would just switch places. So I'd get on the drum kit and he'd sing a couple of songs.
Okay.
And so we started doing that, which has been fun. So it gives him the opportunity to get up there and get me behind the kit, just mixing it up. You know, just keeping it interesting. We got some special guests. We got some old stuff coming back. It's kind of fun, and I've never produced a festival in my life. I have no idea what I'm doing. But my dad's great on sound. We've got all the sound equipment, so we rely on him for the technical stuff, and I try and book the bands and stagger them out. We're growing it a little bit bigger every year. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Tell me this, then. Have you spent a little time on the road?
Yeah, quite well. I mean, off and on in high school, and then after high school, mostly. It was tough. It was really tough.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, you're just trying to get the car to the next venue, you know, because we weren't famous by any means, but we had gigs booked, and
Okay.
Toyota 4Runner and a U-Haul.
You had an agent, and you had mentioned,
did.
well, or manager or whatever,
Yeah.
and as soon as you said that, I was going to ask you, well, was he honest? But never mind, you have answered my question.
Did you ever deal with one?
No, not like that.
You kind of handled the business.
And we, by the time, you know, when we started the hard tops, I was about 40. I was pushing 40. The other boys were my age, maybe 10 years younger. Brian Crown was a hard top.
Was he really?
Yes. But at any rate, we were pretty much, we all had families. It's not like we could take off or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I had an actual really good day job
Yeah,
that I could not leave. So
Sure.
our travel had to do with, say, playing a wedding reception in Omaha.
Right.
Or some private party south
Yeah,
of Fort
sure.
Smith or down south, you know, one day deal.
Right.
Go up there, play, get the check, come back, that sort of thing. So we were never actually on the road, nor did we really have a manager
Right.
agent like that. And I had a few gigs that I booked through agents, but they were guys I knew and trusted. And it's the cliche in the music business is if an agent dies, he automatically goes to hell.
Right.
That's just it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's interesting. I even now, I've had a couple opportunities. I had an opportunity at a publishing deal also, and they told me that my songs were too varied. I needed to pick a style and hone in on that, which I'm like, if that's what I got to do, then no. I'm very protective of my music, and I've chosen it over any money that's been offered over it. I've seen too many bands go to shit because of label involvement and manager involvement. The pure creativity comes out of the heart and the soul, and when you start getting money into it, I just feel like it ruins everything.
Oh yeah. There's an old country song called Cherokee Fiddle, and there's a line in it and I'm paraphrasing, but now the music is all run by lawyers.
Yeah, basically.
And there's, when you get to that level, there's something to it. Did you ever see, there was a band that came to Fayetteville for several years called Steve, Bob, and Rich, and they were out of Kansas City.
Mm-mm.
And they were this great band, and they had back when they had the album, I used to have their album.
Right.
And it was so good. And eventually, and they were doing great. They were I think they were a Coors band or Miller band. One of the beer companies used to sponsor bands.
Yeah,
and
I
kind
remember
of send
that.
them around the country. And they were with one of the beer companies and doing real well. And eventually got signed.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a 3-piece band, had a stand-up drummer, and they were just great. And the first thing that the label did was insist that the stand-up drummer did all the lead vocals too. And the label insisted they hire a sit-down drummer and this guy just stand out front and be the front guy.
So you took their gimmick away.
Yeah. And they had some success in Europe, but never what they would have been had someone gotten a hold of them that knew what they were doing.
Well, that's the thing that just infuriates me about art and creativity is that you have executives making decisions about it.
Yeah.
That have no idea what the creative process is like, what the fans like. It's really nasty, and getting that involvement. And you see a lot of bands that either break up or the music just gets terrible.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks wind up selling their soul for filthy lucre.
Yes.
And
100%.
sometimes they become wildly successful with it. But you always kind of wonder how happy they are with this. Of course, I would be happy if I were making millions of dollars.
Oh, absolutely.
But
I'd want to do it the right way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to sell my soul for it, because then if your advertisers are controlling you, and you see it with anything, the media or whoever it is, the biggest dollar has control. And as an artist, when somebody starts saying you need to do things this way or this way, to me, I just immediately say, I know what I'm doing. I've done this craft for a long time. I know what people like. I'd rather do it on my own and have an authentic fan base than take tons of money and turn it to shit.
There's a lot to be said internally for having paid your dues. And you're like me. You've played in some crap places.
Oh, yeah.
And
some dive bars
not
for
much money.
Absolutely.
And very often dive bars are my favorite, but I
sometimes
still
they're a lot of
like
fun
for it to go well.
Probably the best stories I have are at dive bars.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. We were playing this one place. Oh, I can't even remember the name of it. It's up in Rogers. It's a hole in the wall place, and we had to play a 3-hour set, and it paid pretty well. But there was this guy at the bar, just been sitting there all night, just head down, just not moving, for an hour and a half. And we started playing Mother by Danzig. You know that one? Mother,
Yeah.
tell your Anyway, this dude pops up and flies up to the stage, man. Like, he was just invigorated. He just gets right up there in front, and we just rocked his world. Like, he was just waiting for that song to hit him, you know? That's the kind of stuff that makes you feel good as an artist. You know, when you can change somebody's. This dude was obviously depressed. He was, just drowning himself at the bar, but he heard this song, and he just lit up.
For a brief shining moment, you made a little difference.
And
in
that might
his
have
life.
saved somebody's life.
Well,
Who knows?
Yeah, that's
know.
exactly the case.
Music is a powerful, powerful tool. And if you can resonate on that frequency, man, I think it's almost like magic to me.
It is.
And you know that well.
There is every now and then that moment when you got a big old crowd in front of you and things are going well and you've just got it right in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And very few things, maybe sex, but other than that, very few things
Sure.
feel better.
Yeah, I agree. It's a powerful moment. How did you get into education? What made you want to go into education?
Well, I was in England. There was no question but what I was going to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a given in my family, and
Okay.
I'm an only child. Well,
Are
that
you?
should be obvious. And
What a shock.
My parents were farmers, and there was never another option. I was going to college, and that was it. And I was genetically fortunate enough to be relatively intelligent, and so I was college material.
Yeah.
And I love to read.
Yeah.
And I was an English major.
What do you like reading?
You know, my very favorite author in the world is a guy named Carl Hyacin.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar, perhaps?
I know the name. I'm not familiar with his work.
Okay. He writes, I'm not going to call them mysteries, but they're sort of almost adventure sort of things. And he has a dark, macabre sense of humor, which appeals to me greatly.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
And Ezra Idlet put me on to him.
Yeah.
Trout and I are great friends.
Nice.
As a matter of fact, I had Ezra's kids in school at Prairie Grove, and when they first came to, see, I'm just wandering here. When they first came to Fayetteville, they played at Jose's Inside.
Oh, yeah?
And there were like 4 of us in the crowd.
Yeah.
We'd never heard them before. Ezra played a Roland electric synthesizer guitar.
Oh my gosh, I remember those.
And
those were
they
crazy.
I remember thinking, these 2 guys are not only the best band I've ever heard, they're the best dance band I've ever heard. And they were just so good, and I foisted myself on them. And we became great friends, and whenever they came to they lived in Houston, and when they'd come to Fayetteville and play, lots of times they'd come out to my house and have supper with us and that sort of thing, and we just became great friends. And I'm certain I was going someplace with this story, and I've lost my place.
Well, we were talking about we were talking about reading and what you like to read, and you were talking about going to college.
Oh, okay,
English and
that's
all
it. Well, Ezra, they both read incessantly.
Yeah.
And so they put me on to Hyacin.
Yeah.
And he became my very favorite author. Okay, Carl Hyacin, Hiasson. And when next you are at the library, get one of his books.
I will.
And you'll be hooked forever.
I'll check them out.
And they're funny, they're acerbic, they're great plots, and always off-center.
Did you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Oh, yes.
Do you like that kind of humor?
I love that.
Okay,
kind
I
of
thought
humor.
that might
I read
be-
that entire series.
Me too. Yeah.
And I just thought it was the greatest stuff ever.
It's
I was a
great.
huge Douglas Adams
Yep,
fan.
Douglas Adams, fantastic series. They haven't got it right yet on the screen, I don't think.
No.
That's a tough one.
I'm not sure you can get that one
I'm
right
not-
on the screen.
I didn't think you could do Lord of the Rings either, and Peter Jackson blew me away. So I think
That
it
was amazing.
takes you the right guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you ever read any Frank Herbert?
Yes, Dune. And the Dune books. It has been years and years, and to tell the truth, I don't remember a great deal about it, but at the time I liked it very much.
It's a very heavy read. It's very
Yeah.
philosophical, some deep concepts, and I mean, you're talking about cloning and space travel, and I mean, he's really the term verisimilitude, which is something I learned from. Oh gosh, can't even think of the guy's name. He worked on Star Trek, but basically believability in fiction, right? It might you might be watching Star Trek and it's 200 years in the future, but you still have to have rules that are believable. Physics
Yes.
still have to work, right?
Yeah.
You still have to have believable things within the show, and I think that's something that's really important with any kind of writing. It's making it believable, putting you in that world. You know, in video games, I don't know if you play any games at all or have ever gamed. But
I am not, but I understand the allure.
Yeah,
And
it's like playing a movie now.
Yeah,
You
that's
become
what
a
I
character.
understand.
Yeah, and you can spend like Red Dead Redemption's a great example. You play this character Arthur Morgan, who's he's failed at life, he's failed at marriage, he's in a gang, he's trying to just get through the next day, and you know the voice acting and the missions you go on. I put 200 hours on that game, and was ultimately a waste of time, but it was a great experience. But with a TV show, you know, you might have 10 episodes, 10 hours. You spend 200 hours with a character and this voice actor, and you really become enmeshed in this story. It's unlike reading a. I mean, you're playing it, you're living it. It's like a novel, but that's interactive.
You know, and I don't know that you've properly characterized that. I'm not certain that was a waste of time. I think that was something from which you took some value.
Well, I'm at that point in my life where I'm trying to be productive, and video gaming is not productive in that sense. That you're not doing anything, you're not creating anything.
But let's say that it might be mentally stimulating.
Well, it was, and there's strategy involved, and there's a lot of things, and I'm kind of at that balance where everything in moderation. I guess the problem was this was during COVID, and I'm a natural introvert, and I just kind of went into a shell. I did
Okay.
nothing. I wasn't writing. I wasn't doing anything. When the kids went to bed, the kids were young, 5 years younger than they are now. I would just spend 4 hours playing video games and drinking myself to death. You know, that's not productive.
Right.
You know, anything in moderation. But now, you know, I feel like I could get into something and play it a little bit, but it was taking up all my energy, and I wasn't being creative or productive. That's what I mean. It's like anything
Gotcha.
to excess. Yeah.
That makes all.
It
the
became an
sense in the world.
addiction, in other words.
What are you drinking here?
Natural Light, the finest
Okay.
beer on the planet. Would you like one?
Oh, no, thank you. I'm just curious about it. And I used to be quite a beer guy, and now I've kind of changed, and my taste runs to craft beers to
Yeah.
some degree now. And I would just like to say, just because it's a craft beer doesn't mean it's drinkable. And I have found that about 85% of them are not for my purposes.
But the craft beer people take it very seriously. So do the
Oh.
whiskey people.
Oh, big time.
See, I'm not a people. I'm just an alcoholic. So none of it matters to me. I just am trying to get the best value for my buck.
I understand that perfectly. And that stems from being younger and a musician and not exactly the money not rolling in.
Right.
But Natty Light and that sort of thing.
Yes, sir.
And apparently some of those beers have become wonderfully trendy now. Bush Latte
Yes.
is one of the biggest selling beers
I
in
know
the
it.
nation
I know
now, and it's just plain old Bush Light that's been around forever,
I
but
know.
it's become a little bit of a trendy thing, and it still costs nothing.
I know. It's wild. Actually, I drank Bush until Scott Stokes. Did you know Scott Stokes? He went to Winslow, but he's got a lot of Prairie Grove connections. He's our harp player. So Durham, he plays on maybe about a third of the songs we do. Just a phenomenal harp player, like one of the best. I'll send you a couple links to some songs we've done with him. He's been on the pod a couple times. Just
It
a
is-
wild man.
It is really good to find a good harp player
Mm.
because They aren't all good.
They're not all good, and a little bit of harp goes a long way.
That's exact. The trick to finding a good harp player is finding one that knows when not to play.
Yes, and finds the space.
Yeah,
You know all about space.
that
Is
that is exactly the case. Invariably, the guy in the crowd, when it's a slow night and catches you at break and says, "Hey, I play a little harp. Can I sit in?"
The answer is no.
Invariably should not come up, and there's a reason why he's not in a band.
Exactly.
and he will never get it. And bless his heart, he's paid his cover charge. And I'm glad he's
Right.
there. And
Well, that's something funny that you brought up, because I've talked about this a great deal recently, in that there's two things that make you great. You have to have some talent, but you also have to put in the work.
yeah,
I knew guys that wanted to be the best guitar player ever, and they practiced 10 hours a day. They got the best gear, but bless their hearts, Joe, they had zero talent. They were
Right.
never
Yeah.
going to do it. And I've seen super talented people who just won't practice at all and just try and wing it and then bomb. You know,
Yeah.
it takes both to truly be great.
there has to be that convergence.
Yes. Yes. You played with a lot of great guys, obviously. Russ, I know, phenomenal guy.
Do you know what Russ is doing now?
The last thing I saw him do was did a show with Amanda Adams I saw at George's.
Okay, this has been a while then. When Russ and I broke up the Homewreckers after 20 years, and don't misunderstand, Russ and I are still best friends.
Yeah.
We are great friends. The last 2 or 3 years, our bass player thought there should be a reality show about the band in case Russ and I got in a fist fight on stage. You know, after a while, you're like brothers, and you're just, we've been together 20 years, and we're totally sick of each other.
Yes.
And it was great off stage and on stage.
I get it. Oh, yes.
But at any rate, so we broke up, and Russ is one of those guys who, first of all, did have the talent and did work at it.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes from a musical family anyway. His sisters were gospel singers. One of them was in a gospel group called the Merritts, which was locally very prominent and
Right.
very good. He gets harmonies,
Oh, yeah.
which is a big thing. And he was just, even in high
Agreed.
school, he was a really talented guitar player.
Well, just to stop you there for one
Sure.
second, people underestimate harmony. It's another instrument.
Oh, yeah.
It is absolutely another instrument. And there's very few bands since the 60s and early 70s that have really, like, gone all out on it. I mean, Alice in Chains really focused on harmony, and that was what was really cool about them. They had that unique sound. But aside from, some of the people we talked about, you had a lot of harmony in the 60s, in the 50s, and then in the 70s you kind of had the front man.
Yeah.
And you kind of lost some of that, and then it's never really come back to an
You
extent.
don't see as much of that as you
You
used
don't,
to.
and
but
it's a
when you do,
tragedy.
it's wonderful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But that was one of Russ's great strengths, was he understood harmonies.
Yeah.
And he did a lower harmony. He did the 3 below.
Right.
And which fattened things up vocally so much.
It made
Just a
you
great
sound a lot
singer.
better.
Oh, made me sound. I could not find a harmony line if you wrapped it up and gave it to me for Christmas.
Can you not sing harmony?
I very, very little.
That surprises me.
I can occasionally.
You got such ownership of your melodies that I figure you could.
Well, and I never worked at it, to tell the truth.
And maybe that's part of it.
And that was part of it.
Maybe you never had to, because you're the lead
Exactly.
singer. You don't have to learn harmony.
That's true, and also the bands that I was in, the other guys took care of that.
Yeah.
And they carried me,
Yeah. Sure.
as it were.
Yeah.
But Russ, now I on certain songs, I can hit the 5th or the 7th.
Right.
Certain songs.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 songs in the world, I can hit that higher.
Yeah.
And it always, you get that vibration in your throat that feels so good. But Russ was tremendous at harmony, and he understood music. And after
Well, he's got a
left
music
me-
theory degree or something, doesn't he? Doesn't he, like, at least.
No,
Does he not?
no. He
Don't tell me he's completely self-taught.
he was, yeah.
Damn.
But now he was in house bands. He was playing when he was in high school.
Yeah.
He has played forever, and guys that are in good house bands are the best musicians.
Oh.
Because first of all, it's always a cover band, and so you learn how to play
Everything.
exactly
Yes.
like
On the
song.
money. Yeah.
And
It was like
he
Jimmy
was that
Page
way.
getting his start as a studio musician. I mean, yeah, you're.
Exactly. Russ was an agri musician. He taught agri at
I remember.
Farmington for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And being within the constraints of school environment did not work for him
Right.
at all. And so he went back and actually does some interior design work. Well, he works for interior designers. He is a great craftsman.
Mm.
He has built amps, and the cabinetry on his amp will make you cry. It
Yeah.
is so beautiful.
Yeah.
He's just good that way. Well, after he and I broke up and very amiable breakup.
What was the impetus behind ending it?
We've
Were you
been
just
playing for
burned
20
out?
years. We were a little burned out, and it was a little tougher getting gigs. We, Fayetteville music,
Yeah.
live music scene kind of going away,
Yeah.
and we were just kind of tired of doing it, to
Yeah.
tell the truth.
It's a lot of work, Joe.
Oh yeah,
Loading the gear in.
Oh,
I
big
mean,
time.
the
I
set
always-
list, the practice.
I tell people we play for free. You hire us to haul stuff in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But about a year and a half, well, about 2 years after we ended the Hard Tops, I got together with one of the guys or when we ended the Home Records, I got together with one of the guys that had been on the Hard Tops, and we got to talk. Well, let's do a reunion gig.
Okay.
Well, Lee Hyde is gone. He passed
Yeah.
away several
Yep.
years ago. Needed a guitar player, so we got Russ.
Makes sense.
Russ came, played with us, and we did the gig. We played one at Jose's, kind of a practice gig, and then
Yeah.
we did one at George's, and both of them were just packed
Yeah.
to the
I bet.
gills.
Yeah.
And so that went real well, and we thought, well, let's keep doing this.
Nice.
And so Russ...
This is as the Hard Tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Russ stayed with us for probably 3 or 4 months, and then he got an opportunity to play with Mo Bandy.
No
And-
kidding?
Okay, this is a name that you obviously recognize.
I know
Mo
Mo
had
Bandy.
some #1 country hits,
Yeah.
a lot of duets. He and Joe Stampley, Mo and Joe, and so Russ got an opportunity to play with them. It just kind of came out of the blue,
Wow.
accidental, and I will not go into it.
Yeah.
But at any rate, he caught on with the Mo Band, and that's what he's doing now. And it's a part-time gig. They don't play, I'm going to say probably November to February they don't play.
Right.
And then, Mo's kind of semi-retired, but he comes back and plays. So during his playing season, almost every weekend, they'll play some dance hall down in Texas.
Yeah.
Or some festival or something like that. And Russ with Mo has played at the Grand Ole Opry 2 or 3 times. He was at the Opry about 3 weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
That is so cool.
And
Did you
Just
know
doing well.
Coach Morgan at Farmington at all? Steve Morgan?
I know the name.
He, him and his band recorded at Sun Studios.
Oh,
And he was telling me about, they had, Neil Peart had a drum kit he had left there, the drummer for Rush. I mean, just the history of a place like that.
oh.
You're talking about the Grand Ole Opry, like, what to you would be the most, like, iconic musical space? To me, it'd be Abbey Road, for example.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Really?
But Sun would certainly be
Yeah.
there.
I mean, what magic happened in those
Muscle
rooms?
Shoals
Yeah.
would be one for me.
Sure. Grand
But
Ole
yeah.
Opry, certainly. I mean,
And and of course I played in some country bands, but I was never a country guy,
yeah.
as it were. But I so appreciate everything about the historic Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, absolutely.
And Ryman Auditorium there. That would be something. And Russ had a great time with it, but he said he was talking to one of the other guys in the band, and the other guy played there quite a little bit. And Russ said, I'm not as overwhelmed as I thought I would be at this. Guy turns to him and says, "It's because you belong here." And there is something to that.
There is.
And good country was Russ's great love. He played rock and
Is that
roll
right?
with me for 20 years.
So he's more of a country guy, like at heart?
Oh, big time.
I never knew that.
He is, and he can play anything. He's the most amazing.
Oh, I know he can play anything, but I didn't know he was a country guy
But
at heart.
he is a
He
country
does rock
guy
so
at
well.
heart. He was in the at Club West. He was a member of Backstage Pass, which was the house band
No
out
kidding?
there for years. Yeah.
That guy's got a hell of a resume.
Oh, he really does. And now he's in his early 60s, and I'm kind of hoping, the Mo deal is really good and good for him. But I keep thinking, wouldn't it be cool, because he's starting to meet people, wouldn't it be cool if he ran across somebody that instead of being a big country star in the 80s was a big country star maybe 20 years ago, step up a little bit. So, like Alan Jackson or one of those guys. And Russ would be good enough to do that.
Oh, absolutely. He's a top 1% kind of guy.
He really is. And Mo's guitar player, the band is Russ and bass player and drummer, and they have a steel player. I think they have a keyboardist. But for whatever reason, the bass player got sick. Something happened, or maybe fell and broke. Something, the bass player was out for a while.
Took him out
so
of the picture.
Russ just moved to bass.
Yeah.
And he can do that as well as
What an
anything.
asshole.
No kidding.
Right?
We
Those
hate
guys,
people like that.
I know it. God damn it. You got to just embarrass all of us. No, that's...
That'll eat your mouth up.
Oh, it's terrible for you, Joe.
Okay, I just want to point
It's
it
terrible.
out. I'm sure you've never heard that before.
My grandmother used to just get so mad at me. Just, why do you put that trash in your mouth? And I didn't really have a good answer for her.
Because
Other
you
than
wanted
it's
to,
an
because you
addiction.
liked it.
Well, I don't even necessarily like it. It's just an addiction. You don't get it, you become an asshole.
Okay.
You know? My wife told me after the last time I quit, she said, don't ever quit again or remove yourself from this property until you... Because I just get on edge. It's like, they say it's harder than quitting heroin, tobacco.
I
So
expect
you obviously never got into it.
I never smoked. My father was a chain smoker.
Was he really?
And actually
Cigarettes?
wrote his own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every shirt he had little burn holes in it where his ready roll had come apart there. But it just actually I did smoke, but I quit. I smoked when I was 7 years old, and I picked up one of his cigarettes, took a big puff, and immediately quit. And that was the extent of my smoking. And as a musician, or a guy that hangs around with musicians, I've never even done much pot to speak of.
Really? I remember we were playing with Durham. I know George's was one of the first ones to do it when they banned smoking inside.
Mm-hmm.
I was so grateful. As a performer, it just chewed my throat up. It dehydrated me, and you reeked for days. You could not get the smell off. And you know this.
Oh,
that was the one thing
right.
about playing shows in bars back then that I hated so much is that cigarette smell. You're just inhaling all the smoke, and you're drinking too, and it's just dehydrating your voice, and it was just nasty. And I was glad that they moved it outside.
Me too. I can remember, and I'm sure you can too, playing at bars, and basically it'd be the front door, and then the stage would be way over here, like Chester's was, or the Library Club before that. Mm-hmm. And not being able to see the front door for the smoke.
100%. It was just a cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't mind that when that went outside. And I'm all about, smoking sections in restaurants was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it used to be par for the course. And what could we have been thinking? Or on airplanes?
Yes. Well, and I just remember it was funny. It was like, well, you can get smoking right away, or you can wait 20 minminutes for non-smoking. And people would say, well, we'll take the smoking section to get
Yeah.
seated faster. And then you're sitting there just getting, and little kids in there just getting inundated
yeah.
by smoke. You know, not a good thing. We have progressed quite a bit
We
in
really
society, yet at the same time, we're still fighting wars with each other.
have. Yeah.
You think we're going to grow over that shit?
No.
I mean, there's too much money in it.
There is money in it. There is a certain percentage of the world population that is simply evil, in my personal opinion, greedy, power mad, and there always will be.
Well, what's interesting to me is the word you used to describe it. Of the 7 deadly sins, the first one that came to your mind was greed. And I was just telling my son yesterday, we were driving back from 16 General, and I said, you know, if you could just eliminate greed, it would set this world on a trajectory we've never seen before.
Oh,
That
yeah.
to me is the worst of them all.
But you can't.
No, absolutely. Well,
It-
that's
it
part of
will
that
never
free
happen.
will thing. I mean, I don't know. You a
that is
religious man at all? What are your...
You know, I come from, my father was my mother was a Quaker.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
I have much of the Quaker personality to me. I'm pretty much a pacifist. I would like to think I am spiritual in nature. I am not necessarily organized religion in nature, and I am not necessarily opposed to organized religion.
Sure. You believe in a higher power?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I'm pretty sure it's not me.
Same here. Well, both. Yeah, it's definitely not you. But I also believe in a higher power. But I just don't believe in the way that necessarily the Bible and the church explain it to me. There's some questions I have.
Me too. And I find, I've not studied or delved into it greatly, but it is my impression that over the many, many years, the Bible has been rewritten lots of times,
Many times.
to reflect the current
Modern
political.
era.
And
That's a
as
fact.
such, there's no telling, and
Yeah.
I will never see the original Hebrew, and I could not read
No.
it if I did.
Yeah.
But all the major religions have certain commonalities,
Absolutely.
and basically treat everybody right. That's the one. Love your neighbor
It's
as
actually
you love
really
yourself.
simple if you
Yeah.
just boil it down to the one thing. Treat other people like you'd want to be treated.
Yeah.
If you boil things down to its most simple element, and that's the way religion goes, why can't we just be nice?
Exactly.
I just don't get it. I just don't understand the nastiness. I can't even get on Facebook to post something positive without seeing all kinds of hate just for a second. It's just this one, and I'm not even trying to look at anything. I'm just going on there to do
Yeah.
something productive, to promote a podcast or to post something positive, and then there's all this negativity, and then you go in the comments and people they're so nasty and they hate each other, and it's like, man, we're all in this together, man.
Yeah, I don't begin to understand that. They could rename Facebook 666 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But it's a tool like anything else. It can be used, and one thing that Durham failed at when we were kind of getting at our peak, when word of mouth was still working for us, and all of us had kind of previous bands and had a big enough name to kind of generate some interest in Durham when we started, but we didn't utilize social media at all. We were too old for that shit, we didn't use it, and we didn't really have to, but after you've been out of it for 10, 12 years, you got to have some way to communicate that.
Oh,
to,
yeah. I
right?
promote through Facebook.
Yeah, so do
I
I.
have to. I got 5,000 friends, of whom I know about 10.
I know. Right.
That's how it is.
I know. But it is such a valuable tool, but people use it in such it's like a hand. And I say this all the time. You can build a house with a hammer, you can kill somebody with it. And I feel like Facebook, or in all of them really, it's just a vehicle for such nastiness. And people that
It
just
is.
put out nastiness into the world. And it's like my sister, I don't know if you know about my sister at all, but she's autistic and she's got a learning disability. But she went on Nicole's podcast with me yesterday, and she was, in her very innocent way, Nicole was asking her, if you could say something to the world, people are listening, what would you say? And she said, which is a very basic thing, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
It's such a simple, it's just a very come from a very childlike mind, and that's what they want to convey. And it's such a
Somebody
simple
will push
thing.
back against that.
Oh, I know.
Somebody out there will take offense to
I know.
that. And why?
And it's just, politics and religion and all these things, and you can sit down with somebody you vehemently disagree with on one thing, and I bet you can find 100 commonalities with that person.
Yeah.
Things that you could be great friends over. I've got great friends who are far to the left politically. I got people who are far to the right, and if there are things that we just disagree on, we just say, fuck it, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's focus on things. We'll talk about Star Wars for 2 hours, right?
There you go.
It's just, I don't know why. We're more divided than ever. When I was growing up, yeah, you voted for your guy, and you might roll the other. I don't know why you're voting for Clinton or Bush or whatever,
Yeah.
but it was, oh well, let's finish what we're doing or go on with our thing. And now it's just become so polarized and so nasty, and I don't know how. Do you have an optimistic view of the future right now, or do you think?
I do not. I have grandkids, and I worry about them so much.
Yeah. And how old are your grandkids?
19 and 12.
Okay, so I've got a 14, 12, and a 9-year-old son. And I do not want them going to war.
No.
I don't want that at all. And I used to think, how shameful it was for people to dodge the draft back in Vietnam. And, you serve your country, and the older you get, and you look at the reasons we were in that war and the things. And then I have kids,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like, oh, those guys were heroes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
to say, no, I'm not going to participate in your wars.
That is exactly the case. My father was in World War II, and he volunteered. And
My goodness, how old was he?
he was, gosh, he was in his 30s.
Okay.
I'm going to say. And
He volunteered, so he wasn't already enlisted. He volunteered to go.
He enlisted, and he had two brothers who did not have to go because he was in. And I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I may be totally wrong, but anyway, he went and they didn't, and they were older brothers. Maybe they were too old to go, but
Right.
at any rate, he was. I got two divergent stories here.
Yeah.
The first one is a while back I found, and my dad passed away in 1980, but and a while back I sold, my mom was gone, sold their place, and going through stuff and found some boxes of pictures. He had been in the Signal Corps, and the Signal Corps in the Army was also responsible for photography.
Really?
And he had boxes of pictures from World War II of mass graves of, it looked like something maybe out of Auschwitz, and just bodies just everywhere, or alongside the road. His company be going down the road, and there'd just be five or six, a blown up Jeep and 5 or 6 bodies there, and he had all that. And this is my other part of this story. I am of Vietnam age. I graduated in '68.
Right,
It was
right.
going along.
Yeah.
And I was going to college anyway, and my dad told me, do not go to war.
Right.
Do not. I don't care, son, if you go to Canada. I don't care if you
Right.
pop an ear. I don't care
Yeah.
what you do. Do not
Do
go
not
to
do
war.
this.
And at the time, I thought, well, I'm an inveterate coward anyway, so I didn't want to go. But I had toyed with the idea, and in college. I was in ROTC,
Yeah.
and I kind of thought about it, but that always resonated with me. Don't you go to war?
Yeah, oh, I've got friends. I've got a couple close friends that served multiple tours in Iraq, and they're different people.
Yeah,
It has completely broken something, some part of their humanity.
that is exactly right.
They've seen
they come back
things.
different.
Well, they see things that no one should ever see.
Yeah,
And you might be able, and if you're watching a movie, it's one thing. Yeah, this is fiction, but
sure.
but to see that, to see your buddies get their chests blown out in front
Yeah.
of you, the guys you sleep in the same room with every night and have breakfast with, to see them blown up, to see the things that they see, and then just be sent back and say, "Have a nice life."
Yeah. Oh, it is no wonder that veterans have such a high suicide rate.
And the PTSD is
Oh, big time.
it's so powerful and so triggering. I've got friends who can't even be around a crowd of more than 2 or 3 people because they just don't trust what's going on around them.
Yeah.
You know, they've been in situations where they've been surrounded or cornered and have their buddies shot. It's so, it's like something out of a nightmare. I can't even imagine.
Everything about a war and the waging of war, we will go back, is evil. Whether it is greed or power hunger or whatever, all motivation for war is evil.
Well, and I feel like the people who are manipulating the wars aren't even necessarily the powers that are at war. It's the people interfering in between, making deals. The war machine is going to turn. Those wheels are going to turn. They don't care who's at war. They just need to sell the weapons.
There is a profit to be made, and there is another cliche. Wars are waged by old men, are declared by old men and fought by young men. And there's a lot to that.
Yeah, there
Well,
is.
this has taken a depressing turn.
Yeah,
Brad.
let's get back to something positive. What do you I agree. That got dark in a hurry. So
It did.
What are you doing? Like I want to talk about this actually real quick before I forget the this question. You were at Prairie Grove for how long as an administrator / teacher?
26 years.
26 total. You were a teacher first.
I was a teacher. I taught junior high remedial reading, and then English, and then I taught social studies and English all at the junior high level. And every now and then, if someone resigned in the middle of the year, they'd kind of pluck me out and put me in their classroom because they foolishly thought I could.
Sure.
One year at the junior high level, we had elective classes. And actually, for 3 or 4 years, we had elective classes. And I taught 8th grade boys sex education one year. And from a layman's standpoint.
Yeah.
And, and I was in my 20s, so I'd had sex twice and knew a little bit about it.
Right.
Several of the 8th grade boys in class knew more than I did. But it was a pretty neat thing, but that was it. And, one year our high school drama teacher had left in the middle of the year for some reason, and I took that over, and we put on a play. I think it was the Pink Panther, as a matter of fact. It was great fun. And then through a total miscarriage of justice, we had an elementary principal that resigned 3 weeks into the year, and they shoved me down there, and I stayed there for 12 years.
What is it
and
about?
did very little harm, to my knowledge.
What is it about you where you're just down for anything?
Well, I don't have a great deal of sense. And so things come up, and I'll think, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
And I'm correct about 45% of the time.
But you find your way through it. You navigate it.
Somehow, at Prairie Grove Schools, I was so lucky because I had great kids and I had great parents, and I was surrounded by great teachers. So my
There you go.
level of incompetence was not damaging at all.
What a great
to the
town,
school
though,
there.
Prairie
Oh.
Grove. My dad, obviously, and my uncles. My grandfather had Vinewood Animal Hospital for years.
Yeah.
You know, so Prairie Grove was always kind of a second home. I went to Farmington, but Prairie Grove was where my family
Right.
was, and to this very day, I still feel more kinship with Prairie Grove than Farmington, just because it hadn't changed quite as much. I feel like they're not quite as commercial corporate as Farmington is yet.
It is not, and Prairie Grove still has a little downtown
Yeah.
area.
Which is
And
great.
Farmington never did.
No, it
Farmington
never really
was
did.
just a drive-through
Yep.
community there. When I was a kid, my dad had a grocery store in Farmington, a little grocery store. It's now the tobacco shop.
Really?
Yes, that was Paul Giles Grocery.
Oh, I've seen that thing be 100 things. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That used to be a little grocery store.
But at any rate, it was our store, and on Saturdays, going to town was, you would think, Fayetteville, but about half the time on Saturdays when we went to town to the bank or went to Prairie Grove.
Prairie Grove, yeah.
And Prairie Grove downtown was a bustling business
Yeah.
district. Wasn't large,
Right.
but it was there. You know, there's a five and dime store there. There was a IGA grocery store. There was a butcher shop in that little section.
Really?
A guy named George Allen had a butcher shop, locker plant
You just
there.
don't see those anymore.
No. And we'd go over there and get that hamburger and ham and that sort of thing for the grocery store that we
Yeah.
sold. Get it from George.
You still live in Prairie Grove?
I live in Prairie Grove now. My current wife, and as a musician I've had several,
Sure.
but my current wife had a house in Prairie Grove,
Yeah.
and so and she was the first wife I ever had that had her own house. There are houses all over Northwest Arkansas I bought I don't get to live in, but Jenny Disney had a house there in Prairie Grove, and it is on a cul-de-sac street that lies between what is now the elementary school and the high school.
Yeah.
Little short street
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And so when I moved there, I knew about half the people on the street.
Sure, I bet
Folks
you
have
did.
come and gone since then. But yeah, we live in Prairie Grove for years. For about 20 years, I lived in Farmington in a house that my dad and I built in 1966.
Really?
And I've lied about that. He built it, and I carried boards around and occasionally hit him in the head. It was
Sure.
I was like Curly in the Three
Right,
Stooges
right.
when it came to construction. But that
Well, I
was
got to
a
ask
story
you
there.
this. As somebody who's... So, what years were you at Prairie Grove?
I started Prairie Grove in, I'm going to say 1978,
Okay.
and left in, I believe, 03.
Okay. So, Amanda said she saw you today at the library.
Yes.
So she knew you were coming on. So you saw a lot of generations and kids who you knew their parents and
Oh, yeah.
all that. What I had Coach Jay Harper started,
Yes.
and he started.
Jay was one of my boys.
Was he?
Yes.
Okay, nice. Well, he
He-
came on the podcast. You know, they went to the state championship this
Yeah.
year,
Uh-huh.
and he started my senior year. So
Mm-hmm.
he was a young buck. You know, wasn't his first coaching job, but I don't think he had kids yet. But anyway, so here he is as this young assistant coach, and now they're going to state championship, and he was gracious enough to come on the podcast, and I don't think sometimes you guys realize the impact as teachers or coaches or administrators that you have on the kids. Do you get any sense of that? Do you get any feedback on how well you're loved in that community?
You know, that's
I don't want to make
another
your head
thing.
any bigger than it already is.
That's
but-
another thing that always embarrasses me, Brad, and it's not so much now, but it used when Jenny and I first got married, or my wife before, we'd go to Walmart or we'd go to the grocery store, and there would be kids or grown-ups that would make a point of stopping and
Sure.
talking to me.
Yeah.
And every now and then they turn to shit. Changed my life, and of course I did not change their life. I just happened to be there.
Well, you're being humble. There's a lot of kids who need just strong figures in their lives, strong positive figures. And I'm sure you saw a lot of kids with bad homes and
Oh,
awful shit.
big
My
time.
Uncle Kimball teaches at Lincoln now. He's told me some horrendous things. There's got to be that downside too of just seeing kids who are not in a good situation. And
every now and then, and this is mostly when I was principal at the grade school, we'd have to make a home visit to some for whatever reason.
right,
And it wasn't always like we were there being officious or the bad guys or anything.
right.
We just had to make a home visit and I have seen places you would not let your dog live in.
Yeah.
If just incredible places, and it's amazing that kids come out of that and do as well as they do.
Sometimes they're very resilient. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't always become highly successful in life, but
They can.
if they're out and they're making a living,
Yeah.
they've got a job, they're doing
Coming from literally
then they are a
nothing.
success.
With
That is a
yes,
success in my
100%.
life anyway.
Because they had no handouts, no step
Yeah.
ups. They did it all on their own,
That's exactly right.
despite their circumstances. And I think that's beautiful.
And then
You can do
there are
that.
some who never overcome
Yeah.
that, and it's such a sad thing. And they don't know any different.
Sure.
For their purposes, how they're living now is how their parents lived then.
Yeah.
And it's a sad situation.
Well, it's a repeating cycle.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Somebody at some point in the chain has to say, I'm going to break this cycle and do something different.
Yeah.
It takes somebody to do that.
It
or else
really
it
does.
just perpetuates.
And every now and then you run across that kid who is determined to break that cycle.
Yes.
And they are.
Yeah.
And sometime during school, they stop hanging out with the kids they were hanging out with,
Mhm.
who are a bad influence, quite frankly.
Right.
And they just by sheer force of will turn their lives around, and that is the best thing in the world.
Yeah. That makes you feel
It's
good.
great. It really does. And much like Farmington, we've had a ton of great kids who
Yeah.
come out of Prairie Grove who were very, very successful. And I'm real proud of Jay, by the way.
Yeah.
And Jay was a really good athlete in
Yeah.
school and
I
an
had
okay
forgotten that
student.
he said he went to Prairie Grove. Yeah, yeah. That's wild.
It's a neat thing.
Oh, he's a military guy too. So
Now, I did not know that.
yeah, I didn't know that either until he came on the podcast. And he's also a coach. So if you're watching this, coach, this is funny to me. But I thought, I usually do about 2 hours. And I thought, man, I don't know if I'm going to get 30 minutes out of this guy. He's,
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know he was ex-military until he got in. And I was like, oh shit, I'm going to get 10 minutes out of this guy. Because they're but we got 2 hours, man. We did a full show and it was fantastic. I really learned a lot about so much. It's just, the art of conversation is lost, Joe. We don't do it.
No.
Don't do it anymore. It's all text or quick
Oh.
phone calls. We just don't sit down. And I grew up watching my grandparents having cigars and just talking to friends. The TV was off. They weren't playing games. They were just talking.
Some of the best memories of my life would be when I was just a little kid and my dad and maybe another couple come over and the guys would get to talking.
Sure.
Or maybe my uncles came to the house and they'd get to talking and they'd do it for hours and they'd tell great stories.
The stories.
Oh, just the best. And you're exactly right. You don't see that anymore. And I'm guilty of this. My house got a privacy fence around the backyard. You don't talk to your neighbors anymore unless you happen to see them on the street. And every place you can go to a restaurant or wherever you want to go, and everybody's sitting at the table like this.
Oh, it's so sad. My wife and I, we don't do many dates with 3 kids and all we've got going on. We're lucky to get one every now and then. But the last time we went out, we went to Flying Burrito, and she just kind of nodded over. And I looked over. There's a family of 5. It's a mother, father, and 3 kids. and all 5 of them were doing this.
Yeah.
Out eating together. And I just don't know. I mean, you obviously saw, I mean, you were, I don't know what role you would have been in 2000. Were you principal around that time?
Yes.
Okay. That's probably when the cell phones started getting kind of ubiquitous where everybody had them. I mean,
Right.
You had a few come in. Did you see a big change in how kids behaved or reacted with cell phones coming in?
I was so fortunate that time. I'm at the grade school, and
Okay.
it's a K3 grade school.
Okay, yeah.
So my kids didn't have those. I had I had a flip phone,
Yeah.
which was great because basically all it was good for was making a phone call.
Yes.
You know, you could text, but you had to hit the, multiple
4
times,
times to get-
you.
yeah.
So it was more trouble.
It was more
being
trouble
lazy
than work.
like I am is far more trouble than I wanted to go to. So I was fortunate enough not to get to experience
Yeah.
that, for which I'm quite happy.
Yeah.
And I keep my phone in my pocket because my life is on my phone. It seems like, and there's
I
nothing
know
to be
it.
done about. But every now and then, I'll forget to take it with me someplace, and for the first 5 minutes, I'm
Freaking out.
out of sorts.
Yeah.
And then it becomes so nice once you can psychologically acclimate yourself to not having
Yeah.
it. It's like you have thrown away an anchor.
I definitely get that. Having 3 small kids, I always want it on me because I
Oh,
never
yeah.
know. You know,
Yeah.
my oldest one got one when he was 12 because he was mature enough to have one, and he was gone all the time doing robotic stuff.
Okay,
and it
yeah.
was like we need to have that. And then as the middle one was gone more, you know, he got a phone. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about is when you let kids start getting onto the internet or onto the phone, it's everything all at once.
Yeah,
I mean, everything's out there. And
that's exactly right.
I'm very much either a liberal or a libertarian on like freedom first. I believe in freedom of free will. You know, you coach them, you say stay away from these things, but ultimately, the more you push them away from a thing, the more they're going to want to find it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And that has always been the case.
And I know a lot of parents who have tons of limiters on their kids' phones, and they have to approve every website they go to, and they have a tracker on it. And I know as a kid, I would not want to be tracked.
Oh,
And
no.
you
That
know,
would not have gone well on
No.
several levels.
my parents track each other and see where they're at and coming home, and I'm like, that is the most violation
Oh, I think so.
of my human right. I do not want people tracking me.
No.
You know, if I want to go shoot heroin and cheat on my wife, I don't want anybody knowing where I'm at. You know.
Well, and that's probably a good attitude on your
Yeah,
part.
but I'm just with my kids. I don't want trackers on them because I feel like freedom. If you know you're being tracked, you're gonna outsmart the tracker,
Oh, yeah.
right?
And they can do it.
And they will do it. I've heard all kinds of crazy stories about people leaving their phones here and going out and and then
Sure.
linking their phone. They got ways to do this, but I prefer freedom unless you give me a reason to take it away.
This is what a parent should always do, I believe, is raise your kids right as best you can and then trust in your raising.
Do you have kids?
Well, no. Now, my wife before Jenny had 4. I had 4 kids, but
You
they
raise
were step
children
kids.
though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you do is you try to model the right thing for them, and they're going to screw up, they're going to grow up, and they're going to make mistakes.
So you raised 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and I say I raised them. Debbie's sons were both 16 when she and I met and got
Okay.
married. But the 2 girls were 4 and 6. So
Oh,
I
wow,
was more
big
involved
gap.
in
Yeah,
their raising.
Yeah.
By the time I got to the boys, they were always brain damaged because all boys, when they are from about 16 to 18, are brain damaged and then they heal. This is my theory of children.
We got a constant hard on for like 4 or 5 years
Oh, yeah.
that you think with your dick, and that's it.
Well, and the problem with that, and it depends on the size of your appendage there, but it'll suck so much blood out of your brain. You've only got so much in your body to use, and if it's all down there, then there's nothing up here to,
There's nothing
to
left
drive
running.
function.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow, this went to hell.
No, this is good shit. But you got to raise a couple young ladies,
Yes.
and so that's cool. What was your style like? How did you
You
approach
know,
that? Girls are very different than boys. I don't have girls, so I don't really know.
they are, and Debbie and I got married when I was about 39 years old and well into my career, as it were. And of course, I got band stuff going on.
Right.
And I was probably not as good a parent as I should have been simply because I wasn't there as much as I should have been.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And just, I don't think I was horrible. I don't think I was wonderful. I was doing the best I can with the tools I
Sure.
thought I had.
Sure.
That's it. I look back and I've got a million regrets
Oh,
about
don't we all? Yeah.
parenting, and that's part of the deal as a parent. You always do.
I've started exploring the idea. I try and do a lot of meditating, and AI has really helped me with this. I don't know if you've played with AI much.
I have not. I am technologically, to use a politically incorrect term, retarded.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't understand a bit of that. I barely understand how pencils work, for Pete's sake.
I'm actually not entirely sure I know how pencils work, to be honest. But it's really helped. AI it knows everything all at once. So
Yeah.
like I had a foot condition. I'd gone to a couple doctors. They said it was a fungal infection. It was not a fungal infection. I didn't believe it was a fungal infection. I took a picture of it. I asked Grok what it was. It told me what it was and how to fix it, and it was done. After months of different doctors and things. And so I was like, well, what about mental health conditions? What can we talk about here? So it's like, is it possible that I have this? Well, no, can't be this because you don't have this and this and this circumstances. Well, after 20 years of going to doctors and psychologists, and you're never going to be completely honest with a person. You're going to hide your deepest, darkest shit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm talking to a computer, so it's not going to judge me.
Right.
So I can be 100% honest with this thing. And these phones are already recording everything we say anyway.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
China,
Yeah.
the CIA, they already have everything we've ever said. So it's like, might as well. But it has shown me insights into my own behaviors and patterns and helped me really understand where, like, basically it told me, you've got general anxiety disorder for sure. Here's where it comes from. But the other issues you have aren't a disorder. They're personality traits that were developed from this event and this event. And it's just been really wild and eye-opening. And so I've been talking to it about songwriting and things, and we just had these conversations. And if you keep it in the same thread, usually it'll try and start you over every day. But if you go into your history and keep it in the same thread, it remembers all the input you've given it. So I would start dumping lyrics into it. And because I write in a very metaphorical way, I use my lyrics as a journal. I'm not a guy that writes a journal. But when I write, it's very personal, but I don't want it to be obvious. I don't want it, because it's a very personal thing to write a song. You're putting your soul on the page.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to be obvious and say, I'm depressed and want to kill myself. You don't want, that's bad writing. But if you're hurting and you make it into poetry and you make it a little vague, it has a couple of benefits. It shields you from your true vulnerability, but it also makes it to where it can be interpreted by the listener in many different ways. Right? They can extrapolate what they want from it. And I started, based on what Grok knew about me, I would start dumping lyrics into it. And Joe, it was analyzing these things 95% right. Saying, based on this and this and this, here's what you're talking about here. And it was crazy. And I would correct it where it was wrong. Like, no, well, this line is actually about this. Well, then that would go into its bank, right? And so now I can throw in, and not only can it tell me what my lyrics are about, it can tell me what year I wrote them. This is what you were going through at this year, so probably you wrote this around this time. Right, every time.
This is so incredible.
It's
and
like
maybe a little
talking-
disturbing.
It's like talking to God. almost. And
Okay,
and we got
yeah.
into this and I'm sorry to take up this time on your podcast because this is your show, but
No, I'm thoroughly enjoying this, and go ahead.
we got into talking about religion and alternate possibilities and theories and you know you're familiar with the Sumerian tablets that predate the Bible, and they talk about the Anunnaki. There was a ruling class of gods here that were either from another planet or from another dimension or something, but there was some involvement in the pyramids. There's a lot of evidence that the pyramids, because you have pyramids on every continent, and that are very similarly built. And the idea is that an alien race came here, set these things up, basically set themselves up as gods, and took the beings that were here and accelerated their development and used them as a slave class. At some point, there was a flood, and these beings left. I mean, that's Noah's flood. That's in every
Sure.
right. The
Yeah,
flood.
it's in all of them.
Yeah, but I got into talking to Grok about, hey, what's right, what's wrong, where are the facts here, and like we were delving into this history and really trying to figure out based on all the facts, because it has all information all at once, what could have been possible, you know, talking about Jesus as a historical figure, and it's been one of the most fascinating things I've ever experienced is talking to this computer. And I can make a reference about the Prime Directive, right? I'm a big Star Trek fan. So I can say, well, what if the Anunnaki got called back because of a Prime Directive? They interfered with, and it's like, oh, yeah, and it knows every reference. I can make a reference to Goonies or Back to the Future, and it gets the reference. It's wild. It's mind-blowing. And it's become the podcast has been good therapy.
Oh, I bet it has.
Because I'm talking to other men, and men don't talk anyway a lot, and the opportunities for us to get together and talk have become diminished with our lives getting so busy, and sometimes wives don't want men to get together, But it's become this quest for knowledge for me. Like I'm thinking about, the second coming, and did Christ really get resurrected, or is it a consciousness thing? You have to evolve above the greed or the envy or the lust to achieve a level of thinking where you are truly being a positive person, right? And just explore, and you're never going to get a concrete answer, obviously, because we don't know everything that's happened in the past, but what's possible, what could have happened. It's just that seeking of knowledge, and it's been so fun, and it's taught me so much about myself based on the input I've given it. I'd encourage you to try it.
I may do that.
It'll blow your mind, dude.
I'm
It-
fascinated.
So today I've got this song me and my son wrote. It's called Sunsets, and it's got one verse, and I love this verse, but I just can't find another verse that kind of fits with it. So I asked Grok, because we've been talking for weeks on the same thread. I said, hey, can you write me a second verse to this song? Basically, knowing what you know about me, what the song's about. And it gave me a verse, and it was really kind of obvious. It was a little too on the nose. I said, try that again to make it metaphorical, more in my style. And gave me a second draft. I was like, that's something I can work with. There's some cool ideas there. And I took it, and I rearranged a few things, changed the rhyming scheme a bit, and then I had a really good verse. So I co-wrote a song with a computer today.
Wow. I'm kind of knocked out with that, but that is so cool.
I am too. We're at the cusp of the future.
Yeah.
I'm more scared than I've ever been in my life, but I'm also more optimistic in ways that, I can't even think of the last thing that really came. It would have probably been the cell phone that really changed humanity. I remember when video games came into the home. You used to have to go to the arcade. My dad had to go to an arcade and put quarters in.
Oh, yeah.
We had Atari. Yeah, hell yeah. Dig Dug, all that shit. And then the Nintendo came out, right? And that changed everything. Of course, our parents didn't let us play 12 hours a day on it. You came in after dark and after dinner, and you might get to play for an hour. And it was limited. But
Well, we'll see. And that is a betrayal of your age there, because that was long after
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was a kid.
Sure.
And
Did you
able
ever
to-
play any Nintendo?
No.
Come on now. You didn't.
I have never played Nintendo. You know, I'm such a small town country boy, and just never got too interested in that. Although I love going to the arcade, and I wasn't kidding about playing Frogger.
Yeah.
That was my game, and I didn't have to kill any aliens. I didn't have to. I just had to keep my frog alive,
Just keep him
going
alive.
across
That's all you gotta
the
do.
river and the highway there, and I was pretty happy about that.
Did you ever watch Seinfeld?
Oh yeah.
Did you see the Frogger episode where George is crossing the street? And
Yes.
He's gotta move that.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
That was so good, and I was a huge Seinfeld fan anyway.
Yeah.
And the best one, of course, was Master of My Realm.
Oh, my domain.
That's it. Or
Master of
Domain.
My Domain, yeah.
Yeah. That's
That's a
the
classic.
one. But they were all so good. There has been some tremendously good stuff on TV, and then some dreck, and that's just
Well,
the
Seinfeld
nature
still
of all
holds up.
entertainment. Oh, it
Despite
does.
the fact that a lot of the gags are built on answering machines and being
Yeah.
home, like some of that stuff's a little dated, but for the most part, it's a show about human interaction.
Yeah.
My son and my wife are watching it right now. I think they're in season 4 or 5, and him and I are watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. You ever watch that?
I bits and pieces. I watched
Really?
Arrested Development,
Yeah, that's a good.
which was the one kind of that odd, quirky
Yep,
deal
yep.
like that.
Well,
that I
Curb Your
watched.
Enthusiasm is basically Seinfeld After Dark. I mean, that's Larry
Okay.
David who co-wrote it with Jerry, and he plays the lead, which is basically George's
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
But I think you'd love it. If you like Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm just is an edgier version. of it.
Everyone that I've ever talked to about TV and Curb Your Enthusiasm just goes on and on about how good it is.
It's the great and the way he does it is that he doesn't write a script; he writes an outline, and so all the actors are improving their lines for the most
Oh.
part, and you can tell
Oh.
because somebody will zing. And I'm sure there's a lot of editing. I'm sure they do several takes.
Oh, yeah.
but you can tell when they're just really hitting gold and laughing. It's genuine.
Oh, okay, you've put me onto that, and I promise
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
find it and watch some of it.
Well,
How we do it?
well, we're at
We've about eaten up our time, haven't we?
well. I mean, we got about 10 minutes left to 2 hours. You want to call it a night?
Not yet. I won't go back to Brian Crown.
Can I take a pee break?
Yes, you can.
Let's do that, and then we'll go back to Brian Crown.
You know, when you told me we would have no trouble filling up 2 hours, I thought, nah, this, we'll go 30 minutes or so.
You
I'll
didn't
run out of
believe
things
me?
to say. No, I did not. I am astounded. I here the last few minutes, I thought, what? Wonder how? Holy cow!
We
Incredible.
you know Rick Owens?
That name sounds
He
familiar.
went to school at Prairie Grove. He graduated with Dad in '77, but he's a big dirt biker. He's got a place out at Mill Creek at the Razorback Riders Club. My youngest one goes out there and rides dirt bikes, but he
Okay, dirt bike, motorcycle.
yeah,
or-
yeah.
Okay.
But or David Pendry, he was another one. But him and Rick and David went down to Mexico recently and had a horrendous experience. Let's just say, party split up, out of gas, injured, no way to get anywhere.
Oh.
Just a story from hell. Anyway, we're doing the podcast, and they're both telling the story. They were both there, and I'm thinking, you know, gosh, it's probably been a couple hours. It was 4 hours. We did a
Wow.
4-hour podcast, nonstop. I'm telling you, conversation's real. It's a powerful thing. If you have two people who are willing to actively listen and participate, you can go all night.
Time flies when it's interesting.
It really is. It's
That's it.
incredible. It does. But you want to talk about Brian
I want
Crown.
to talk about Brian Crown, and I will presume that you have a good relationship with Brian.
Well, I haven't talked to Brian in many years, but Brian was a very pivotal person in my life. He gave us an opportunity to get sober into George's. And, of course, once I restarted Durham, that he let us do our CD release party there. So, I mean, he got us into the amp. So I've like I said, I haven't talked to him in many years, but very, very fond of Brian.
He so believes in live music
Mm.
and always have. And of course, Brian, for my purposes, was a world class sax player.
Well, he was living on the street at one point. He told me.
When he first came to Northwest Arkansas, um, Lee knew
Hi.
who he was and picked him up
Yeah.
for the hardtops.
Yeah.
And so when he was first, I don't know how long this lasted, but when he first came up here, he was sleeping on our bass player's couch.
Yeah.
And detailing cars for Don Nelms.
Yeah.
That was his
My
job.
dad's first job was service rider for Don Elms.
There you go. Well, Brian was so driven, and that's the only word you can use
Yeah.
for him. He is driven,
Yeah.
and he's a workaholic.
He is.
And he went from that to what
Yeah.
he is now, vice president of the AMP, or the Walmart AMP,
Oh, yeah.
owns George's, and he always wanted George. He reveres the establishment that is George's.
Well, but that's good to
and I
have
am
people.
so proud of him.
Without Brian, George's might have been gone a long time ago.
Big time. It would be a hotel.
It's one of the last
something like
really monumental standing things that's been there
That's it.
since my childhood, and I can't imagine what you've seen come and go.
That's it. You know, we spoke earlier about Dixon Street kind of having been gone.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the case. But gosh, there were all those bars and music
Yeah.
places down there, and there were several places there you'd get a beer and a beating for $1.50
Sure.
without any trouble at all. It was just a wonderful place, and beer with a little lime on it, and
Changes the game.
a little mound of salt
Mhm.
on that, and get your lime on the top there. And after a while, the taste of beer gets old. I get beered out, but a little lime and salt on it and makes it work really
Changes
well.
the game. Really does.
And I have once again just wandered off down a rabbit hole.
No, I had a lady. She lives out in Mill Creek. Ashley Perkins came on and did a podcast, and she brought real limes over and was just putting them in light beers. I think she was drinking Busch lattes, maybe. But I was like, I'm gonna try. I'm too lazy to cut up limes and all the pulp, but I'll just get some lime juice, and I put a little squirt in, and it changes
Yeah.
the game.
And you know, they have at liquor stores, you can get these little containers of lime flavored salt.
Yeah, I've got one somewhere.
And,
yeah,
and those work pretty well.
yeah,
too.
I've tried those too. I don't like it as well as this, but yeah, I've tried those.
Of course, the trouble with putting salt on the top of it is you have to lick the salt.
Yeah.
Lord knows where the can's been.
Nobody knows.
And none of us are ever washing the top of our beer cans.
So, what is do you still talk to Brian? Do you have
You know, every now and then, Brian and I are great friends. When he first started Oreo Blue,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was a great band
Fantastic,
for
yeah.
and still exists.
Do they still exist?
Yes, but it's a totally different thing.
Okay.
Gary Hutchison is a guitar player, and Gary's just a monster. And
Is that any relation to Russ?
no,
None, right?
Not-
okay,
not at all.
I didn't think so.
not at all. But at any rate, when Brian first started Oreo Blue, he didn't have any PA stuff. And a lot of places you play, you know, you have to bring in your own something.
Sure.
So I would because I had all the Hardtops PA stuff at my house.
Yeah.
I would secretly loan him this stuff.
Really?
And not tell the other boys in the band because
Right.
they might have gotten a little iffy about that.
Yeah.
And based on that and having been together off and on for so many years, Brian and I are just great friends. And this pleases me greatly. Here a while back, he told me, as long as I have a venue, you will always have a place to play.
That's awesome.
Now, and I'm not going to take, we're not big shit anymore. We don't matter. We got friends and family that come, and it's a fun show. But you know, we're not packing the back of George's like we used to do. But I am.
Well, that's the ebb and flow of
highly
life.
grateful. It is.
You know.
Oh yeah. And this one of the best bands I've ever had, but my target demographic is in their 60s and 70s, and they don't get out much. We're playing songs that are 60 years old.
I
We're
know.
playing Motown. We're playing R&B. We're playing 60s and 70s rock and roll. And a lot of our audience doesn't come down to Dixon Street and try to find a parking place.
I can
anymore.
understand that. And that was, with Durham, we had also found that, we were in our early mid 30s, and our audience also had young kids, and we're not going out as much.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like we're in the same boat, and we took this break. And like I told you, my son Walter was the one that was the impetus behind getting it back. And I thought, man, what a beautiful thing, because now you can bring your kids. Because when we were playing before, you're in bars, so even if you did have kids old enough, they couldn't come in.
Right.
And now there's a lot of venues that are restaurants that have
Yeah.
live music, and so hopefully, after Drum Fest, we can get some gigs playing in an all ages venue, and do that. But it's weird that it took. It's like a full circle thing. You kind of get burned out, and then you quit doing it because of your kids, but then you have one of your kids that drags you back into it.
Yeah.
It's been such a beautiful thing. And then, of course, we had to get Dad, because Dad plays everything. He can play any instrument and just pop in there, and he's a great vocalist too. So, that was an obvious choice just to keep it in the family. Which ironically, Durham is 4 people with 4 different last names, and our band is 3 Durhams with a different name. But we'll see how it goes. I hope you can make it out. June 7th.
I hope to. June when?
7th.
June 7th.
Saturday, June 7th. If you're in town.
Well, let me check with my life right now, and I have it here in my pocket. And I'm so happy it is. I forgot to turn it off, and it still hasn't rung.
Hey,
Normally, I'll get 7 or 8 spam calls every day.
as the host of a podcast, I've had my phone go off many a time.
I am sure that's right.
It's the most unprofessional podcast.
Everything about this
Mississippi.
has been so pleasant. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, Brad.
Was it? I guess it was better than you expect. What did you expect?
I didn't know what to. I had no expectations whatsoever,
Yeah.
other than I thought, because I had watched the one that you did with the guy that was a minister, and
I think I sent you Wes's. Was
Yes.
it Wes? Yeah.
Yes, and so I
Shout out Wes. Great pod.
Indeed, that was fabulous show, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I figured you'd resonate with his soul.
Yeah,
I sent you the one I thought like you and
Yeah.
this guy could have a beer together and sit down
we could.
and yeah.
We could, although probably not a Natty Light, probably a Boulevard Wheat.
If you gotta have your fancy
be,
beer, that's fine. We can take care.
But that's it. But I had no expectations. But I was, as I mentioned a while ago, stunned that we have talked for 2 hours, and it seems like maybe 30 minutes.
I know it goes by fast, and
makes
it's
it good.
it's a lost art that I really would like to bring back. And you don't have to start a podcast to do it. You can just have a friend over, have a beer, man. Just sit down and talk to somebody. I feel like we just don't connect as much as we used to because life's so busy, and you've got this phone, but the phone doesn't foster a relationship like this does right here.
That's exactly right. And I used to have great conversations with my friends. I'm 74, Brad, and all my best friends have died.
Yeah. That's a tough space to be in.
And I expect in the next 20 years or so I will. Maybe, maybe not.
You look healthy. You look fantastic. I mean, what do you do to stay in shape? You must exercise a lot. You're toned.
I work out a little bit, and apparently I was blessed with great genetics.
That's
For much of my life, it's not like I took real good care of myself.
Sure.
Smoky bars, copious amounts of beer.
Yeah.
We can go right on down the list with all the sins that I have indulged in. But I'm just pure luck. Everything about my life has been good luck. The music part, the school part, the being still alive part, it's just pure luck, and I had nothing to do with it.
Well, I think you're full of shit. I think you had a lot to do with it. Your attitude and your charisma and your charm makes you who you are, Joe, and that's why people love you. It wasn't all accident.
Well, Oh,
You can deny it all you want, but
thank you. I appreciate that more than you know. But I am a realist also.
and I appreciate that. So
Okay, well, have we done this thing then?
we've done this thing, but we got to do it again.
Well,
We'll do it again in a few
Okay.
months. I mean, come on, right?
we both have more stories to tell.
I know you do.
I know you do.
You know Darren Crisp at all?
Yes.
He hit me up. I've been trying to get him on the podcast. I know he's going through some health issues, but he wanted to hook up this week, and so I'm going to go out and talk to him Friday. We might be planning on doing a little something together. I don't know what yet, but
We Hardtops, I believe we recorded at Crisp once. Little, basically 4-song demo
yeah,
tape
yeah.
is what you used to do. And then some years back, there was a. Do you remember All About Town magazine?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and Betsy Finacci
Mhm.
had that, and her best friend was Jeanette something or other. And Jeanette was a graphic design artist, videographer.
Mm.
And so she shot a music video for us.
Oh, nice.
And we did a cover of Money for Nothing by Dire Straits.
Yeah.
And shot it actually at my school. And,
Did you
and
really?
It's kind of an interesting thing.
That
There.
is neat. Is that online somewhere? Can
Nah,
anybody find that? Okay.
It's I don't even know if I have the CD anymore.
Really?
To tell the truth, we wanted to put we cut a CD, and it was all cover songs,
Right.
and it was also everything I do is kind of promotional.
Right. Right.
So after cassette demo tapes kind of went by the wayside, we cut a CD that was designed to be a demo tape.
Right. Right.
And we were going to put the video on it, embed it, and apparently we were going to have to pay thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of dollars to Dire Straits and their labels.
I wonder
They
where
can't
you were
do
going
that.
there. Yeah.
So yeah, there's
I'll tell you a funny story real quick. So you can put your music on any platform, but it's time consuming and tedious. You got to start an account. You got to
Yeah.
put all this stuff. Well, CD Baby, and there's other companies that'll do this. You just say, hey, pay us, a flat rate, and we'll put your stuff up on everything. And so I thought, well, that's cool. I'll just do that. Well, I did it. Well, I'm doing the podcast, and I'm using one of my songs, Minuteman, as the intro music. And so as I would post every podcast, I'm getting copyright struck by CD Baby, who is representing me. So I'm copyright striking myself. So basically, when I get monetized, and I'm fairly close, I can't make any money off those videos because I'm using my own song through a third-party distributor.
I see.
And a lot of people do this, and it's kind of lazy. But I'm like, I'm not doing this. So I yanked it all off, and so now my own songs are clear again, and I'll have to do the work to put it on those other platforms and everything. But if you're interested in listening to the Durham music, it's all on YouTube on the Durham channel. But eventually I'll get it up everywhere. But I'm not taking shortcuts anymore.
I will find that. That sounds like great fun.
Yeah. I'll send you some links. I'd love to. Next time you come on, we need to do a song.
Well, okay.
You pick it, I'll
Maybe.
play it, and you sing it.
We'll
But you got to wear the hat.
we will entertain that thought, and I will definitely wear the hat.
Joe, thank you so much, sir.
I have
This has been an
thoroughly
honor and a
enjoyed
pleasure.
this.
And as a young boy growing up watching your success, you've been a big hero of mine, and I'm sure you're a big hero to a lot of your students and fans that have come to see you play. You're a beautiful human and a beautiful soul, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that more than you know.
Well, thank you, Joe.